Hi, Hearties. This is Heart to Hearties. We're so glad you're here with us. I am Marg from San Diego,
And I'm Jen from Seattle.
and we're joined today by not one, but two special guests. First, I want to introduce Caroline Walsh, known to many of you because you're so active on social media, Caroline. But welcome to Heart to Hearties. We're so glad to have you.
Hi, Hearties. Glad to be here.
And you're from
South Bend, Indiana.
South Bend, Indiana. I was born in Indiana, so I have very warm feelings for South Bend, Indiana.
That's Garrett for Hoosiers, yeah.
There you go.
Mhm.
And without further ado, we want to welcome Paul Redford, the writer of last night's episode, Stronger Together. Paul, we're so glad to have you.
So happy to be here. Oh,
Thank you. I think it was a very well received episode.
yeah, sounds like it. So, yeah,
Yeah, I
very
think
happy about that.
people are talking the level of fervor about I'm not sure which is bigger, the mystery, because we had some screenshots of the last scene with Lucas
Yeah.
today. People are going crazy trying to figure that out. And
Mhm.
then, of course, the mic drop line at the end of the episode. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of talk. But before we get into it, Caroline, tell us how long you've been a Heartie and maybe share like one of your most special Hearties moments.
Well, I found the Hearties in season 6, and I just fell in love with Nathan. I mean, the instant he was on screen, I was done. And
Oh, well, then you must have enjoyed this episode. Yeah.
oh, very much so, very much so. Kevin, we send birthday cards to every year, and I was able to go to the Hearties family reunion this year, and I got a shout out from Kevin,
Oh,
which absolutely made me melt. And
yeah.
of course, now he can do no wrong.
Well, that's pretty cool. He acknowledged your birthday cards in front of every Heartie in
Yeah.
Vancouver. So nice. So nice. We have an amazing, very generous cast and of course an amazing Hearties fandom.
It is
So
amazing. It's just it's better than any show I've worked on. It's just
oh my goodness gracious. Well, I mean, West Wing kind of predated the whole
it
social media.
did, and I think West Wing was the first. I mean, between us, sometimes Aaron Sorkin would spend a little too much time online reading comments and breakdowns and things like that. It was the first time I saw you can get a little too wrapped up in your fans' reactions and up and down. But I think it's a much healthier relationship with the fans and the writers.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
striking me so much this season how many similarities there are with the Swifties phenomenon and the Hearties. I think we need to do a whole
That's true. Yeah.
someone needs to write a book about it because just all the Easter eggs that you guys are planting, it really reminds me of, of Taylor putting all of the Easter eggs in her performances. And there's just
On our
there's
Easter egg
a
hunt
richness.
episode. So yeah.
Right, exactly. Exactly right. Well, Caroline was the perfect person for today because not only is she a big Heartie, she's a big Nathan fan, but she is also an incredible like sports night and West Wing fan. She loves Aaron Sorkin. And so, Caroline, tell us what drew you to those shows that Paul wrote on for all those years. Talk to us about that.
I love good writing. And I mean, Sports Night caught my attention. And then the West Wing kind of drew me in. And my mom and I would sit and watch it every Wednesday night. And my favorite episode ever was Someone's Going to Emergency, Someone's Going
Thank
to
you.
Jail. And
Thank
that's Paul's episode.
That
And
one
I
I'm
just thought it
so
was
proud. Yeah.
chef's
Aw.
kiss.
Thank you. And I also, between us, I think it's Rob Lowe's favorite episode because, he had such great moments in that episode. Because I
Yeah.
don't think he really knew who I was before that episode, but ever after, I would I would see him at the Warner Brothers gym, and he would give me a big hug. It's sweaty t-shirt. Like, oh well, I got a hug from Rob Lowe.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a hard time keeping that to ourselves, Paul, but those of us who are of the Rob Lowe
I'm never washing
generation.
my t-shirt again.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. I was shocked. I was researching how many seasons The West Wing was on.
Yeah.
Do you guys, other than Paul, do you guys know how many seasons it was on? Caroline, you probably know. Do you know?
7.
Yeah, 7. 7. I mean, to think that
I've got
we
to do
are now
that.
exceeding an epic show like The West. I mean, that freaks me out.
Oh, I'm not. Well,
That's amazing.
you never want to leave Hope Valley. That's you want to
No. And I hope that someday it is studied in all the ways that The West Wing is too, because I know like my kids were exposed to The West Wing in their classes, like, their history classes and stuff, which is pretty great. Yeah.
Well,
So
that's something I'm proud of, from being on both shows is, people watch television to watch a show to get inspired by it.
Right.
I actually did, years later, I was in Washington and someone said, well, do you want to meet, the president's speech writing staff? And I said, sure. So, it was across the street from the actual physical West Wing. There's another sort of, and they were all in their 20s, and they all said, "Oh yeah, we're doing this because of West Wing." They were in their 20s writing speeches for the president, knowing it's probably the best job they're ever going to get in their life, and it's all because they wanted, to be Toby Ziegler and Sam Seaborn. So.
Wow.
And the same way people, come away from our show was just for that weekly inspiration, that uplift, and it's a kind of optimism that isn't cynicism. It's genuinely affirmative without with a real sincerity there. And I think that's what people respond to in both shows.
Yes, Brian Bird said in an interview last week that the show doesn't have a cynical bone in its body, and it
doesn't. Yeah.
As a writer, I find it hard to even imagine. I think it's a daunting task to even get into that kind of mindset. It's kind of wonderful. What a great way to transform your life.
It is the challenge of the show is we always, it'd be interesting to share with you. I mean, I think every script had a version of a character. I mean, the stories sort of stay from script to script, but there's a version of a story where a character is doing something out of self-interest or something that is basically driven by ego and selfishness. And there's always a better, Hope Valley turn on it to find, well, what if they were actually doing it for someone else or doing it anyway?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's almost every script we do that.
Caroline, you want to jump in? I know you had a.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters from The West Wing is Josh Lyman. Bradley Whitford, another excellent actor. And I was just trying to compare and contrast the relationship, the slow burn for Donna and Josh, and then for Elizabeth and Nathan.
Yeah.
And maybe you can talk about that on just a little bit of the compare and contrast.
Yeah, a lot of it is, I mean, it's to me, it's the fun of writing TV as opposed to, feature film, particularly TV that can go over many seasons and isn't a close-ended kind of 10 episode kind of thing, which we have in The West Wing and in When Calls the Heart. You can kind of look around and see not just what the characters, but the actors, what kind of chemistry they have. And I'll tell you, and Aaron will be very upfront about it, Donna was never meant to be, Josh Lyman's love interest. I mean, there was a whole set, you have to write all these assistants in The West Wing because everybody has an assistant. We happened to cast, Janelle Maloney, who was wonderful. We had her in Sports Night. And it's just one scene in the pilot when she sort of pokes her head in the door and says something to the Josh Lyman character, who's at that point his career is in crisis. He's about to get fired. And just the way she said it, and just the look on her face, you could tell instantly, oh, she's in love with her boss.
Yeah.
And there's something about just watching, from the very moment, Kevin joined the show. I mean, between Nathan and Aaron, I mean, they were always meant to have a kind of chemistry, but they're very particular kind of chemistry. I think we discovered as we went on with those two performers. It's quite different than what Aaron has with Chris.
Mhm.
And we just wanted to keep exploring that. And also there's just both the Nathan and the Josh character, I think they have in common. It's almost this comic male thing of they don't understand their own feelings. They don't get what they feel until someone tells them, or until they come smack up against it. I mean, they're
That is
both,
forever.
they're both, men of action in their own way. They're very interested in getting the job done. So they're so focused on the job. And then so these actual emotions kind of surprise them. So, I mean, Nathan came on the show with a completely different mission than he found when he arrived there, and met Elizabeth.
Yep.
So yeah, and those are the most fun to write, because it's there's essentially, it's almost a comic romance for both of them. A comic comedy because they don't understand their own intentions or their own motivations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're just hoping that we're not going to have to wait until the last 5 episodes of the series life, as we did with Josh and Donna, because
yeah. Well,
that wasn't quite enough for us. That wouldn't be quite enough.
Can't give anything away, but we made a big step this episode, I'm telling you.
Yes, you certainly did.
Yeah.
Yes, you
And
certainly
you
did.
can imagine the discussions in the writers' room about when we were going to do it and what.
Yes, we're going to get into all of that.
Yeah.
But before we do, the West Wing made the walk and talk format so popular. And it just seems like Pascal mentioned him in an interview how much she loves them for Rosemary. And I think once you start looking for them, it's like, it feels like there's a lot of them this season.
Yeah.
Last night, the first 2 scenes were walk and talks, first with Nathan and Allie, and then with Toby and Elizabeth. So talk to us about why those were walk and talks, and what you think about those scenes.
Yeah, a lot of it is just simple practicality. In every script, you've got to start with exposition. You've got to have 2 characters telling each other something that they sort of already know or they're discussing. So it doesn't have the built-in tension or dramatic value of 2 characters coming in with different intentions. And so it helps to put it on its feet just to make it more active. Otherwise, it's 2 people sitting in the room talking to each other, and it's a form that can be kind of boring unless they're at odds. And if they're not at odds, well, then have them go in the same direction and keep the background moving. It's also a wonderful way to keep reestablishing their world every episode.
Oh, that's cool.
We reestablish the beauty of Hope Valley because they're out in the sun. And when you're filming in Vancouver, you want to take every advantage of when you get to sunshine. But also reestablishing, the charm of the town, and everyone meets on Main Street. So, yeah.
Yes, as occurred. But Pascal was saying that that walk and talks are very challenging, and so it's interesting that you really have to hit your mark. And so it's cool that you did it with 2 young actors as well. That was neat.
And they're both. I mean, you'll see that our Toby and Allie are terrific, and so we're throwing them a lot of scenes. We gave Toby, I think, a great story this season. Allie is always great, and her story now that Nathan and Elizabeth are getting closer. Of course, she'll be in the middle of that, and of course, she'll have a point of view of that. And I'm really, I so enjoy, it's the fun of writing and then seeing what the actors can bring to the scene. And there are actors that always elevate your writing,
Well, we're going to talk to Elise Late. I don't know if it's Late or Leet Rogers, who did all of this block. She did 5 episodes, 5
Yeah.
and 6. So we're going to talk to her next week. So we'll get a sense of how how she enjoyed that. So both of these walks were leading to Main Street and the intersection where Lucas gets to set the record straight about the incredible Jeanette visit. So talk to us about that. It's very interesting.
Well, we've been keeping Jeanette in reserve for many seasons now. Every time, ever since Lucas arrived in Hope Valley, there's always been the discussion, well, when will we actually see Jeanette, and what's going to happen when we actually see Jeanette, and what's the truth about Jeanette? So I think everyone says, I think it's safe to say you haven't seen the last of Jeanette.
Okay.
I can't say much more than that, though.
Okay.
I know there's plenty of speculation, and of course there is. But even if she weren't coming back, I think the fantastic way she appears now is it's just the right time to advance not just Lucas's story, but Elizabeth and Nathan's story. I mean, I think Jeanette was just the kind of spark that we needed to kind of close Elizabeth and Lucas's story, kind of not once and for all, but to really reset that and remind ourselves at the same time opening a door to Elizabeth and Nathan.
The way that she exaggerated we learned this week, the way that she exaggerated the relationship really evokes what Rosemary did, when
it was great that you picked up on that. But she's a very different character than Rosemary, though. So, but
yes, certainly.
Yeah.
But you wanted to it sounded like she was casting aspersions, and then you left us hanging with that. And then this week you brought it.
But notice when Rosemary exaggerated her past, the effect it had on Elizabeth then.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and
that's
see what it does now. Really, it was obviously meant to be a little,
yes, a dig.
And it didn't work.
No.
Oh, she was completely unflappable.
She's genuinely over it. And she's genuinely not jealous. So I'm glad you picked that up, because it's a real contrast in terms of Elizabeth, how she reacted to the first jealousy story, and how she's moved on to. So
all right, well, now we are going to move on a little bit, just a little bit for a second from Elizabeth and Nathan. We're going to move on to the resort storyline. And probably one of my favorite tweets from the night was from Ben, who had said that Maisie presented a list of demands as long as a CVS receipt. And I don't know if you've ever shopped there, but like their receipts are.
Oh, I know. I'm always throwing them out.
And it was so stinking funny. And Samantha Ferris is just amazing with this character. Is this
and that's I'm telling you. I'm sorry, what?
Is this kind of how you envisioned her to be?
Yes, and it's such I can't tell you how often you write a comedy scene, you cast it, you audition, and then you realize, oh, it's just not going to work. You've got to either change the lines or take the comedy out of it or whatever. To have an actor, particularly an outside, nobody we'd worked with before, really. I mean, we knew about her. She's a terrific actress. But to come in and nail it and have that kind of timing and chemistry with our regular cast. I mean, we know who can do comedy, and so that was as someone who likes to write comedy and sort of dramatic stories, that was a real pleasure to see that.
Well, her back and forth with Ben is
Oh,
hilarious.
I know. Well, we
I
always,
know.
you know, Ben is comedy gold, but
Well,
to
yes,
actually give him a real partner there and to make it a relative, it's like it's great. Yeah.
it was phenomenal.
I kind of liked the way Maisie seems like a take no prisoners type attitude, whereas another female mayor, Abigail, was
Yes.
more like a gaining the consensus style and just kind of
Yeah.
pulling you towards the way she wanted you to go instead
Yep.
of
Yeah.
that. I thought was like,
And Lori, of
I
course,
love
has
that part.
comedy too, but yeah, very different, very, again, good contrast. And didn't you love how we made Lee mayor? I mean, that was the gift of the whole story is, you know, I don't know, I forget what day it was. It's like, well, you know what? Now's our chance, you know, we've always wanted him to be mayor. Can we still get away with it? So,
well, the tweets about that, like tag you're it, like I mean, it was.
oh yeah, that I'm pretty sure was an improv from Ben.
From Ben. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Well, and then Mei kind of seemed to break the whole political stalemate open, kind of using the mud mask and some acupressure.
Yes.
And kind of tell us about your choice to have these other folks in Hope Valley kind of bring an influence on that.
Well,
you know.
Yeah, thank you. It's we did you never want to tell a Hickim story now without Mei because they're so good together. So
True.
and we also it was a chance for us to show you know that she has a real comic charm that I don't think we've, you know, when she first appeared, which was season 9 or something, it was again, that's writing to the actress, writing to the character. It was kind of a dark story, you know, mystery lady. And then as it went on, it was like, no, but she has this kind of lightness about her. I just really enjoyed, you know, giving her those, you know, those little aside scenes with Hickim as, you know, Maisie's asleep in the chair. And it's just, it's just writing to your characters and your actors' strengths. So we thought it'd be good to have her in that story.
He seemed like when she came into town, she just seemed dark and heavy, and he's just kind of brought out a little bit of sunshine, right? Like
I know, and that's
just lifted the burden that it felt like she was carrying. Yeah.
Somebody with it. Go ahead.
No, he just you're right. I mean, you know, he brings out a lightness in her that she's never found with anybody else. So they do belong.
Yeah. Somebody else who's had a big burden in their life is Gowen. And last night I really felt really bad for him. He's trying to find the peaceful life that just cool. And now he's getting pulled back in to the business world, and it's something he doesn't want. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's also just he's such a great actor playing, and but how do I want to say this? Sort of internal conflict. You know, he doesn't have, you know, the character doesn't have a lot of external issues or problems anymore. But he's so good at playing his own, you know, self-doubts, misgivings. He doesn't trust his own redemption in a funny way. So that gives us still more to play with Gowen. Because it's not like, oh, he's turned over a new leaf, he's wearing a halo now.
You can see the internal struggle.
Yeah, it really is. He's almost, I mean, sometimes we compare it to, it's a little bit like he's an alcoholic who can see the drink in front of him. He knows the drink of power and politics, and he doesn't want to get hooked again. At the same time, you know, he's really good at it. And he can see that, you know, Lucas needs him, the town needs him, you know. It's time to put your talents to use. So
a question.
that's a very it's always interesting to me to the Gowen scenes, because he always brings a kind of depth to them. Even when he's kind of playing it light or dismissive or joking around, there's that note in it. Yeah.
One of our Hearties, Heidi Sinclair of Ontario, Canada, noticed that Henry was reading Don Quixote. She wonders if that is for any particular reason.
I think it's just, if you plant the image of the mind of the old, and the valiant knight who could be fooling himself, but he's on one last mission. I think, and alone, except for his Sancho Panza. I think that's very, it's one of the archetypes to look at for Gowen. The old the lone knight out on his horse on what could be a fool's quest, but he's still
and
out
he's
there.
Pining for someone, right?
Oh yeah, his
Yeah.
What's her name in
Dulcinea.
Anyway,
Dulcinea.
he has his Dulcinea. We all know who his Dulcinea is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Gowen and Joseph have developed a real cool relationship.
Yeah.
It's really interdependent. And the camera angles last night were some outstanding work that I thought.
Well,
maybe you can talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can, the close-ups over their shoulders and the camera angles.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about stuff like that happening and how it adds to the story?
I'm really, as a writer, you're always really happy when the director gets it and, shoots it in such a way to bring it out. And, so much on this show, our directors are so good and so experienced. There's never, I don't think once I've seen a scene shot and go, oh, I wish they'd done it a different way. You can communicate, you have these kind of tone meetings where you try and talk to the director about what you intended with the writing. And we try and do that, but it's really, it's the proof is how they do it on the set. And I just thought that was terrific. But that also comes from being immersed in the show and your cast. And very often your cast will, more than the writing, will kind of guide you as director to how to do it. You just see what they bring and then bring it out as much as possible. And when you've got two guys like that, you really can't just turn the camera on them and don't do anything fancy and don't try. Yeah.
It was gorgeous. Another Hearty, I don't have the name, noticed, another eagle eye Hearty noticed that Molly was reading some kind of medical textbook there
Yeah, I think, well, it's, Molly, one of her principal jobs is Faith's assistant.
Right.
So, that one was not in the script. I think that was just the choice of the actor and director. So
interesting.
But I'm glad that, that they go into that kind of detail,
Yeah. So there was so much exploration of Faith in the West Wing, and I just thought the scene with Joseph where he was quoting scripture, but at the same time was angry. Wow. I mean, you really saw him wrestling with how he needs to present it to his kids, but his own, he couldn't necessarily control his reaction. So talk to us about writing that being at odds.
This is just one, it is part of an arc. I mean, part of the fun of this show is you get episodes with self-contained stories, beginning, middle, and end over 5 acts. But then we all work very hard collectively on these bigger arcs and these bigger stories. And Joseph and Jacob, I just think is a terrific arc. I mean, you'll see how it goes. I mean, this is just a middle chapter of it. So, but it's one of my favorite arcs of this whole season, I think, and you'll see it just get stronger and better. And well, you'll see. I can't give too much away, but stay tuned.
I thought it was a cool twist that amid this sticky situation and this secret that the kids, that Cooper and Angela and Allie told their teacher, told Mrs. Thornton. Yeah. Yep. How did you decide to do that? And
it's just, I mean, so many of these, with a story with that kind of depth and momentum, you don't want to leave Elizabeth out of it. She really is kind of the heart of the Valley. And if you're doing something that emotional and sort of life-changing for the characters involved, somewhere or other, I think Elizabeth has to be brought in. And
okay. Yeah, because I was like, there wasn't a plot point necessarily.
No, that's purely, I don't know what you'd call it, an emotional scene.
Okay.
It's like, we want to check in with, with the heart of the show here and see what she feels. And, and she's going to steer them to the kids doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And, yeah. But,
I mean, it's just neat that in Hope Valley, kids feel safe enough to just share their mistakes, it's.
Yeah. And Elizabeth has created a place for them to do that.
Yes. There also was some pie involved.
Yeah.
Because I think Minnie's
yeah.
pie probably softened the blow.
Yeah.
So you may not have seen it, Paul, but we admins have made predictions on Heart to Hearties, just for different things that have kind of maybe would go on in the season.
Yeah.
And Marg predicted that Lee was going to become mayor. And
there you go. There you go.
I don't know. I pulled it out of.
You should write the show. Come on.
Thin air. I have no idea why. But his whole search for purpose, I just felt like it was still a hanging Chad. Like we didn't.
There you go. Yep.
We needed him.
I know.
So it's cool. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
I'm 1 for 1,000. I'm sure.
Okay.
Batting average, but I got it. So there you go.
Okay, but I don't think anybody predicted how he was going to become mayor.
Neither did we. That was just the fun of that
pretty
story.
Sure,
I mean, there were so many
like
different
being
twists.
mayor anymore is going to work nowadays.
Co-mayor, that's another thing.
Yeah. So tell us kind of how that came about.
Oh, well, what was it? I mean, we loved him, taking over the saloon, giving Hickim Mike his job. But, once, I don't know, we're always looking for great stuff for Gavin to do. And he doesn't have the clear-cut role of a Nathan or a Bill. He's not, he's just a great dad.
Yes.
But he's
and a great husband.
It's going to be Rosemary, having that moment. So
absolutely. Well, and everybody loved the line, from Rosemary. Did we buy another saloon?
Yeah. Well, she delivered it so great. It was like, that kind of, and how great that she didn't, there wasn't this, she wasn't scolding. She just got it right away.
Right.
And it's the look on Lee's face. Of course this is what he's dreamed of. Of course this is what he wants.
Right.
So
I was kind of surprised that she was just so okay with it. Like,
we were a little worried in the writing because we didn't want her, going back again to the saloon story.
Right.
But just to see how they played it. And I honestly think it's just the way he played Lee's sort of honesty about it.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, and for your husband to really be sincerely tell you this is what he wants. And, if you really do love him, it's okay.
It does bring up a lot of questions, however, about how the editor of the Valley Voice is going to be the first lady also in town. It's
well, everyone has like 7 jobs in Hope Valley. Come on.
Yeah, it's
Who knows who's going
gonna
to
be a little
mayor?
tricky.
I
A
don't know.
little bit of a conflict of interest there. We'll see how that.
I
how
mean, you remember when Lee was sort of somehow like editing the Valley Voice himself and writing editorial? It's like everyone takes each other's job at some point.
It's so true. So true. Not to mention Robert the stylist. So
That's
Yeah.
that one too.
yeah.
Yep.
The correspondence course stylist.
I know. Yeah, that has to happen.
Yep.
Has to happen.
So we spent a lot of time last week kind of oohing and awing over the kids' costumes, but last night was all about the guys. Lucas's suit with the stitching and Nathan in the red shirt in that final scene.
Yep.
And when the men faced Maisie, they not only had a fantastic solution, they looked great doing it.
Well,
how did those kind of visuals?
You'll have to
good,
talk to
right?
our great costumer about that. But I will tell you from my own personal experience, because not only have I written on West Wing and Sports Night, I wrote on Suits. And the first thing you discover in suits make the character.
Yeah.
Just the clothing is
Yes.
powder dressing. That's what it is.
The visual of the three of them it was just like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, she's saying what?
Yeah. Anyway.
The one thing I love this year is you're getting more Lucas and Nathan interaction.
Yeah.
And the dart scene was very, very telling. And can you talk a little bit about writing that scene?
Yeah, the dart scene, I think it was a last draft. It was almost like a last edition. Just because it was a very tricky fine tuning, how Elizabeth's going to react and what Lucas. We always knew that this episode was going to begin with Lucas making this sort of sincere confession apology to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth accepting that. And then we realized, well, that does open the door to him being sort of forthcoming with Nathan in a way that he's never really been allowed to be since the engagement ended. We've never really had a scene where Lucas and Nathan were able to talk about that. And but the great thing is, men don't say things eye to eye. Men have to be facing somewhere. They're either driving or watching a game or playing a game. And I just thought the two of them played it so well.
Really, we need more scenes.
I mean, it really is a momentous thing. He's giving Elizabeth up, and he's giving it up to the person who was a friend and a rival and everything else, but just the generosity there. Nathan could receive that generosity, and then it opened the door to the subsequent scene with Elizabeth. So it was more Lucas. We care about all these characters. We have to make sure that nobody's going behind each other's back. I mean, it's who they are. They are forthright, honest people, and life gets in the way, the world gets in the way. But if they can be honest with each other, that leads to something that to me is much, much more moving than,
Yeah, of course it echoes what Nathan did for Lucas before. So it's that closing of that, but it's also just such a cool kind of brotherhood moment. And it was very moving, very moving.
Yeah, no, it's not playing poker. It's not Nathan's game. It's not Lucas's game. It's really, it's the whole value. Darts is a very different thing. You haven't seen the last poker game. There will be more poker games.
More darts.
Or darts, yeah.
Okay. Well, if I had a wish for season 12, I would want more Lucas and Nathan scenes.
Yeah, me too.
I think those two have developed a good relationship, and it can go even farther.
Well, I think you'll see it go even, in season 11, you'll see it go farther. As the two need each other for what's to come. So
Frida Graves of Greensboro, North Carolina said last night, "I've always pulled for Elizabeth and Nathan, but the scene that just played out with Lucas, that had to have been hard. He knew he had to let her go. He basically gave Elizabeth and Nathan the green light. I have no words. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but you have to love that guy. She wants to know who wrote these beautiful words. And if you have the opportunity to be truly happy, you jump in with 2 feet. And that was another line I thought was powerful too.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to remember. That was one that we came up with in the writer's room. You have a scene when you have the last line of it. And I can't honestly take credit for it. I don't, though I was happy to put it in.
Really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Really, really beautiful. So Rosemary and Bill are now a team.
Isn't that great? Oh,
that was
so
a great
enjoying
moment.
that.
It really was.
They're the team that we
We're
didn't know
we're
we
all,
needed.
Murder, She Wrote fans.
Right.
So it's a little bit of like, let's get a little Cabot Cove, a little,
It's fantastic.
investigative team here in Hope Valley. Yep.
So they bring their findings to Lucas, and Sherry Smith of New Orleans really speaks for all of us. I think the camera effects in that flashback, first of all, we've never seen anything like that. Either that or the the hazy as he's coming out of his coma or whatever he was, these effects that you guys are bringing to this mystery are really cool. That had like such a film noir kind of feeling.
I'm so glad you like it, because we knew we were
it's
kind
a
of
stretch.
breaking the form here.
You totally are breaking the form, and I'm here
if
for
we're
it.
getting away with it, then thank you, because
I know, I think it's great. And so Sherry wants to know, he's starting to regain some of his memory, and it's cool how those effects gave us little like snippets of it, or snapshots. She's asking if this is PTSD or a brain injury or what is it?
It's not brain injury. It really is. I mean, they didn't have the word back then, but it really is, trauma.
Okay.
Trauma makes you forget, and then things can, and as we know now from PTSD, things can bring it back. And the characteristic of memories and post-traumatic memories is you can't control them. They come out, you don't want them. They kind of come out from, exterior events, and then you have no choice but to kind of relive them. So they're very painful and very powerful. And you'll
and he's having to function at 250% right now, in the midst of a recovery. He's had that whole negotiations have gone on, and then he's given Nathan the go ahead over darts, and then he's you could tell it took a toll on him to say what he did to Elizabeth. You could really feel in that moment. Chris played it. It was beautiful. But you could tell that in that last moment that it really took a toll on him. And he indicates how to Bill and Rosemary how tired he is. He's really he's stretching it.
It's definitely the effect of accumulated stress. As they always tell you in these situations, never get too lonely, too hungry, or too tired.
Oh boy. Okay.
Because that's gonna it's again, then you don't have the mental energy to suppress these memories anymore, and they will come. So you're exactly right. It's under the stress of that, and seeing the photograph and being asked about it again.
He hadn't seen.
He doesn't want to talk about it. He spent the whole.
No, he certainly doesn't.
He really wants to put it behind him. It's Pike. It's solved. Let's move on.
Okay, so that's kind of his MO. He's changed his life. He's transformed. He doesn't want to reflect.
He is very invested in putting it behind him.
And all of it's coming back between Jeanette and the trauma. It will have its way of eking its way in. Okay. Well, that brings us to the most anticipated moment of the night, because we had seen in the preview that Nathan was going to ask Elizabeth, what am I to you? And are we just friends? And, in a script for the actors, a screenwriter will write beat to tell the actor to take a pause. So did you write take the longest beat ever that existed
no, actors can't. No, you can't tell an actor how to do it, but you can just write the lines and how they do it. But I sure loved how they did it. So yeah.
I mean, we couldn't figure out whether it was a slow-mo camera.
No,
the admins were like, "Oh no, his blink was very slow and unnatural. There's no way." But
no special effect.
So it was no effect. Yeah. It was just lip staring for.
Yeah, lip staring is the great word for it. But yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, they've earned that. I mean,
they've earned that and more.
Yeah, wow.
Well, it certainly gave us time to hurl things and scream at the television.
Well,
yeah, we didn't miss any dialogue because we were yelling.
Of course, they had to,
Yeah, that was smart.
And the lovely payoff later.
Yeah, here I am in San Diego. It's called the where we have the Old Globe Theater, which is positioned right near the airport, and so you have the Balboa pause. That was the pause for the Hearties to scream their heads off.
Yeah.
Without missing any dialogue, So, but okay, so the payoff was particularly sweet. First of all, we've never seen Elizabeth come to Nathan's row house. Oh. Well, let me go back. Have we seen her ever go to his row house? I mean, we've seen her inside the row house for the Christmas tree scene, but I don't know that we've ever seen her approach.
Come to the front, yeah.
I don't recall it.
No, it's always that was huge. To her house. As my memory is he's always showing up at her door.
Exactly. So that was a big deal. Yeah. Natalie Avila of Los Angeles wants to know, where do you envision his row house to be? Like, how many houses down from Rosemary and Elizabeth is it? We need the map.
It's not definite, but we've always kind of thought it's because you always see, Elizabeth's and then Lee and Rosemary's, to the right.
Yes.
We always kind of envisioned maybe his was just to the immediate left, But
yeah, I mean, he's got to be close.
I don't think you've ever seen them both in the same shot, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
He had to be close enough that he could hear Allie yell for him.
Yeah.
In that babysitting crisis.
Yeah. But they don't seem to share a backyard the way she does with Rosemary.
Yeah, and the Canfields are in there somewhere, and presumably lots of other people. Well, we're gonna need to know that.
Yeah,
we're gonna need that.
Okay, well, this. I think this is the first season you see all the row houses, right? In that, there's that.
Well, it's CGI, of course.
Of course, it has to be CGI.
Yeah.
Yes, because there's really only.
You've seen him in season 1.
Yeah, you do. Okay, yeah. And don't we see all the lights on in them for Goldie's birth? Did we?
Yeah.
I think we wrote that in. I know.
That's beautiful.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to the final line of the episode. And there's a couple quotes from Hearties. Heather Trudell of Thunder Bay, Ontario, that final line, wow, is what he said. And Jen Heaving of Maple Grove said, I'm gone, passed out, swooning. Nathan looked his happiest ever. So tell us about the mic drop words. Who penned the epic line, friends don't look at each other like this?
Oh, I'm going to say I did just because I want to believe I did. It was probably, looking back, I think some version of it was probably suggested by Erin herself. Because really on these in really intense emotional Elizabeth scenes, Erin will always you know, and Aaron knows Elizabeth better than anybody. She'll nearly always have an improvement or a refinement or something.
Wow.
And I don't mind saying that, as you know, in some shows, you know, you don't let the actors anywhere near, you know, improving or anything like that. But there's such I think good relationship between the cast and the writers on this show. You know, we always want to know what the, you know, because again, they know their characters better than anybody.
Well, she's been living her for 10 years.
She's been living her for 10 years. And just the way she says it, you know,
right.
Even if she didn't come up with the exact words, I mean, she sort of made them her own. I mean, just the teasing and the hopeful and the seriousness, and it's just all there.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah. It was a
I don't
great
know
way
how
to
many
end
takes
it.
there were, but whatever take we picked, it was the perfect one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her head is finally getting out of the way of her heart.
Yep. Yes. Oh, there's a good one. I may steal that one, Karen. Yeah.
Go for it.
And take
my
credit.
gift to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't be more excited to see the dinner that Mei is going to do for Hickim next week. And as happy as we are to see Anna come back,
yeah,
we're not real excited to see Mr. Higgins again. In fact, I'm sure people were hollering at the TV when we saw that was happening.
Yeah.
Is that kind of your intent, or?
Yep.
Oh,
you know,
well done.
We've got to, you know, what's the story about story development? You take a character, you put them up a tree, you throw rocks at them, and then you get them down out of the tree. So Elizabeth, you know, it's time for Elizabeth to have a real problem, and you know, this will be one of them. So,
and he is a problem.
He is a problem.
Yeah.
Very interested to see how it gets resolved. So
I can't wait for next week.
Yeah. Yep.
It'll be good.
It's a great moment for her. I mean, it's anyway. Yeah, for Elizabeth. Yeah, you'll see. Mm-hmm.
Well, and to have Cadence back is pretty amazing. You know, it was so cool to have Rosaline back, but to have Anna come
we
back,
love doing that, and it's
so cool.
The show's in its 11th season. We can do that now.
But it's such a meaty part.
Yeah.
For her, it's cool. Yeah.
And we do have a list of you know, actors we've missed. You know, we keep track of them as they grow up. And it's just a pleasure to, you know, bring people back. So
that's fun. I love that. And when you talk to anybody that's worked on the show, they talk about how much of a family it is, and that feel of, and so I'm sure anybody that you ever ask, like, hey, would you like to come back? They're like, yes. Bring me back up.
Yeah. And what a privilege to, you know, when you're casting, you know, kids, to watch them grow up.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and what an ideal childhood, right? Hope Valley.
Yeah. Who wouldn't want to come back to Hope Valley?
Right.
I loved that moment with Anna and Opal, with showing her beautiful picture, and the fact that they have the Bouchard GV, you know, that you've turned that whole grand gesture thing around, is really that the kids are looking up to him for that. It's just cool. Yeah. It's very cool. It was beautiful. Yeah.
All right, so before we close our timeout, we're going to play another round of our Heartieship. And it's kind of like Battleship. You've got 3 choices: hit, miss, or classified. And so we took some contributions from the Hearties for guesses this week.
Okay.
So,
let's be clear, we don't want you to use a lot of classified.
I know, but I can tell you on certain things I have to. I am sworn.
You can do what you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So in season 11, Henry's bumper crop of hazelnuts leads to hazelnut lattes becoming all the rage at the cafe.
I'm going to call that a qualified hit, actually. But you may have to wait till season 12.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I'm saying. Okay.
We'll grab a latte and we'll be right back for season 12. I bring it on, season 12. Do you hear us, Hallmark? Bring it on.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jeanette's bid on the resort is going to be the best option.
Oh,
I
I'm
have a feeling I
parsing
know
it here,
what
but I'm
this
going to say
is.
miss. I'm going to say miss.
Oh.
Okay.
Ooh.
Anna hits Higgins with the cowbell when he propositions her. That's what we really want to see.
Qualified hit. I mean, she ought to, but I don't think.
Yeah.
Let's
You'll
put the
see.
cowbell to additional use.
Okay, good. Yeah.
All right. Wyman Walden is involved in Lucas's shooting.
Sorry, on all these, I have to say classified. I hate to say it, but yeah, classified.
All right. All right.
Ooh.
Wow.
Henry will help persuade Joseph to forgive his brother. Hmm.
I think I can say hit.
Ooh.
We'll see.
That strengthens
Hmm.
the relationship.
Wow, that's cool.
Oh.
That's a again, you know, some of these, if they're not quite hits, they ought to be. So that's yeah, but you'll see.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Opal will be hired as an apprentice to the architect because of her amazing drawing.
A miss so far, but we'll see. Yeah.
All right. And last but not least, the umbrella in the flashback does not belong to Lucas.
I'm gonna say, well, I have to responsibly say classified to everything having to do with a mystery. But please note that there was no umbrella recovered at the scene.
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay, no, that's good. That's very good. That helps
Yeah,
us.
okay. All right.
That helps us.
Wonderful.
That was
Yeah,
a
there
good one
was-
to end on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were a lot of people talking about a shoe too, which I didn't see in addition to the umbrella. So I need to go back and press
Classified.
pause at the
Right.
exact
Yeah, yeah.
right moment to see that. Okay. All right. Well, obviously we're a little obsessed with this episode. Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you. Wow.
Thank you
I
for
think it's a
letting
great
us
pivot to the
break
rest
it
of the season.
down.
Yeah, you'll see. So, yeah, things are, ramping up, as they say. And I hope you enjoy where they're going. I think you will.
Okay, cool. Caroline, you're a natural. You come back anytime.
Yes. Wow.
Wow, your
I
first
would
time
love
to dive into this after seeing.
I now know who I'm writing for too. It's great. I'll visualize you.
Totally. I mean, you saw it. What time was it for you last night when you finished watching?
About 10:30 at night, and I had to get up at 5:45 the next morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
10:30 last night. She said she took copious notes, and clearly you did. And well, we can't thank you. You added so much to the conversation. So
Yes, thank you. Oh, great.
thank you. I love it. I love it. So, and Paul, you're back. I hope you're back with us. You have another episode coming up.
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
quickly,
Yeah.
right?
One
Which
that
one
I'm
is
very
it?
happy with. So for what I've seen so far. So yeah.
Which episode is it?
It is, I believe it's episode 8.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's coming up here pretty
Coming
quickly.
up
So,
soon. Yep.
okay, cool.
Okay,
Awesome.
Great.
All right. So the intrigue, the love story, the redemption arcs, the classroom scenes. There's so much heating up parties. So stay with us on Sunday nights, both on the Hallmark channel and on X. Your tweets are sending me. They're so much fun. Always use the hashtag Hearties and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube because we've got a lot more coming on these Heart to Hearties, starting to ramp up with some of the directors too. So we will see you next week on Heart to Hearties. Bye-bye.
Bye.